Gray dawn crawled over the continent like a curtain trying to hide the world from one more powerless sunrise, ever since former U.S. President Donald Trump had slammed a sweeping package of America First tariffs on every strategic import, lithium salts, rare earth magnets, precision chips. The grid had been hemorrhaging voltage faster than it could be patched. Gigafactories that once stamped out battery packs for Elon Musk's Tesla now stood silent, their red robot arms frozen in half-hearted waves. A pallet of NVIDIA GPUs was worth more than a townhouse. Even the fizz of an ice-cold Coca-Cola felt like a luxury soundtrack played by the rich. On the skyline, the bitten apple glow of a shuttered Apple flagship flickered like a dying firefly, while Amazon drones circled empty warehouses that no longer held next-day miracles. Hospitals fared worst. Without fresh lithium cells to feed ventilators, administrators begged the giant banks, Citibank, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, for 90-day lifelines. The banks replied with polite regrets. Their own liquidity was parked inside tariff-proof vaults. At street level, a different kind of inventory crisis unfolded. Dealership rows of Acura, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Cadillac, even honest Ford pickup trucks, sat immaculate yet unmovable. Nobody could afford to charge the hulking electric models once the welcome mat tariffs had yanked lithium into the stratosphere. Somewhere beyond that skyline, a single private airstrip still whispered with life. Inside a half-collapsed hangar, Alec Davion, legend of the outlaw air racing circuit, ran oil-stained hands over the matte black skin of his turboprop flyer Sylph. On the fuselage, 23 silver tick marks recorded the times he had slipped past customs blimps and brought hope to places accounting sheets had written off. Now the job was bigger. Smuggle 120 hermetic capsules of medical grade lithium powder through the tightest blockade in modern history. Each capsule, half a gram, powered a pediatric heart pump for 5 hours. Somewhere in St. Elysium Children's the countdown had already begun. A faint snow smell breeze announced Dr. Hannah Wu, her fame as the rebellious chemist, had exploded when she proved that Trump's tariff schedule had been ghostwritten by lobbyists hired by Solex Global, the mega-utility that sold electrons the way smugglers sell jewels. She carried a dented thermos and eyes that had obviously forgotten sleep. Ginger tea, she explained, steam curling like code from the lid. Good for nerves that we're going to need nerves. She glanced at Sylph's carbon propeller tips. Think that antique can still climb. Alec's smirk made the hangar lights look like stage spots. If it could outrun Tesla Starlink enforcement drones at 25,000 feet, it can outrun a bunch of fat customs blimps that still drink JP Morgan bunker fuel. Hannah unrolled a flex screen map across a crate of Coca-Cola Zero cans turned paperweights. Red polygons marked where Trump-era tariff beacons pulsed telemetry to Leviathan, the newest Solex Zeppelin anchored above the old Ford River Rouge supercharger field. Inside those polygons, AI-guided Cyclops drones carried railguns tuned to disable anything with a combustion signature larger than a hummingbird. Only one narrow vein in the sky offered a statistical chance, a frigid stream of ice crystal. Clouds drifting off Lake Huron, cloud microshards blinded radar, but the downdraft brutalized wings. 4% survival odds, Hannah said without drama. 4% is 80% more than zero, Alec replied, cinching the first lithium case into Sylph's Faraday-lined belly. I've flown on worse margins, like the day Trump tweeted new steel duties while I was literally hauling German ball bearings for BMW, nearly got splashed by my own cargo that morning. Behind them an old radio by Heathkit coughed to life. Someone keyed a triple-click code. Alec's shoulders tightened. That's forwarder 59, means the tariff patrols north-northwest just activated their thermal grid. Window is tiny. Hannah snapped shut the cargo latch, then produced a cracked screen Apple Watch. Salda hacked into a biochemical logger, which now displayed the lithium core temperatures. They rolled Sylph onto a runway dusted with lake-effect snow. Far off, the neon sign of a deserted Amazon fulfillment dome pulsed a ghostly prime blue, radiating loneliness. Alec fed throttle, engines barked, prop blades painting silver spirals in the gloom. At 80 knots the old girl leapt, eager as a retriever who'd been cooped up too long. 3 minutes in, the cockpit lights flickered as Solex command pinged an identify handshake. Hannah answered with a forged Tesla battery recycling transfer code that she had stolen from a half-public Slack channel Musk once bragged about during a live podcast. For 30 seconds the sky felt empty, then a search beam snapped on like the eye of an angry god. Leviathan had them. Alec shoved the yoke, Sylph knifed downward, The snow globe of night tilting until gravity tried to yank Hannah through her harness, red targeting lattices jittered across the canopy, Cyclops drones entering weapons range. Hannah launched a packet of spoofed telemetry. As far as the drones could tell, 20 identical sylphs now existed, all trailing identical Coca-Cola chilled exhaust signatures. One drone, confused, locked onto a phantom and sprayed tungsten flechettes into empty cloud. But another spit a polymer net studded with microtorches. Net kissed the left wing, fabric shrieked, Alec killed external power, plunging them into a blackout dive that glued hearts to spines. That he rode the stall margin, counting beats till the ice cloud strata swallowed them, and the drone's thermals fizzed with static. Wing netting froze then shattered like sugar glass. They were alive, but icing gauges screamed. An inch more frost would doom lift. Alec leveled at 8,000, engine coughs translating into Morse. We need heat, yet the lithium payload had to stay below -10°C to remain inert. Above that, runaway reaction. Hannah jury-rigged a bleed air duct, cabin warmth for wings, none for cargo. Her fingers were purple, but the ice sublimated, and the altimeter steadied. Hours bled together. Down far below, ghost town billboards still flashed vintage slogans. Got an Acura dream? Pay the tariff first. City never sleeps, even when the grid does. The irony was lost on nobody. Near dawn, dulled crimson pulses along the horizon betrayed firewall resets at the Solex state line, Trump's tariff grid cycling to new authentication keys. Sylph dipped into a canyon of clouds, engines whispering. Alec eyed a ribbon of farmland where a string of decrepit wind turbines, once financed by Wells Fargo, still turned. That if he could land there, they could swap airplane for truck before the next sweep. He coaxed Sylph onto a crude service road etched between frozen corn stalks. Tires met crusted dirt, bounced, screeched, then rolled to silence. From a shack emerged Caleb Miller, owner of those dented turbines, a man who now accepted Apple Pay only in theory because Apple Pay required electricity. While sunlight thawed frost from the prop cone, the three rebels transferred lithium into Caleb's Frankenstein cargo rig, tractor chassis, Ford F-150 axles, Tesla salvage battery, Apple LiDAR glued on top like a hood ornament. That IT was ugly, but it could lug a fortune in hope. In Lansing's pediatric ICU, monitors crept toward the RED-INA Solex war room. CEOs debated why Amazon's same-day heat maps had gone dark. In Washington, cable news spent 10 seconds noting a blip on radar before pivoting to Cadillac's new tariff-free gas guzzler ad. Back on that frozen road, Alec slammed the truck door. 48 hours to St. Elysium if we drive like thieves and pray like saints. Hannah tucked the thermos into her coat, then glanced skyward where Leviathan prowled the gray like a corporate moon. We've already started a storm, she whispered. Let's finish it. The Frankenstein cargo rig Caleb called Vortex lurched onto the county blacktop just as the first amber stripe of sun cut through cloud. Behind the cab, a box trailer bristling with improvised Faraday mesh cradled the 120 lithium capsules like crown jewels. Power came from a salvaged Tesla Model S drivetrain running through knobby Ford F-150 axles, its dashboard held in place by blue Apple Lightning cables knotted like sailor's rope. Hannah rode shotgun, eyes darting between a cracked iPad map and a hacked NVIDIA Jetson board running thermal forecasts. Alec crouched in the trailer with the cargo, fine-tuning dry ice vents to keep the capsules below the -10°C threshold. In the jump seat Caleb's 15-year-old son, Aiden, hoodie emblazoned with Acura racing duct tape art, piloted a palm-sized drone that fed the NVIDIA brain a real-time LiDAR feed. They had 48 hours to cover 300 miles of Trump tariff cordons before the children's ICU in Lansing flatlined. The route snaked across half-plowed county roads, then funneled straight toward the Gray Arc, a 50-mile buffer zone monitored by Solex's Scorpion gunbots. Banking giants Citibank, Wells Fargo, and J.P. Morgan had financed those bots as infrastructure collateral when Trump's tariff bill rolled through Congress. Now each metallic arachnid guarded America's new paywall with algorithmic patriotism. Caleb mashed the throttle. The Tesla motor howled, drawing 1,200 amps from batteries scavenged off a wrecked BMW i8. Ahead, an abandoned Amazon Prime warehouse stood like a bleached rib cage, its delivery bays welded shut after tariffs doubled the cost of every imported servo. The warehouse's solar roof still trickled current into a forgotten supercharger, so Caleb rolled Vortex beneath a dangling cable and hot-wired 10 precious kilowatt-hours while Hannah checked capsule temps. Inside the loading dock someone had stacked cases of expired Coca-Cola, warm syrup, flat bubbles, but sugar was sugar. Alec filled a Camelback, caffeine would be their racing fuel. Aiden's drone chirped red. Thermal return. 3 Scorpions idling behind billboards that once hawked Cadillac Escalades with "Tariff-free luxury" slogans. Alex slammed the trailer door and vaulted into the cab as the first bot clanked onto the pavement, quad barrels whining to life. Hannah killed headlights, switched to night vision overlay from the NVIDIA board. Caleb dropped the gear lever into low and sent 800 foot-pounds of torque to the rear differential. Rubber shrieked, Vortex fishtailed, spitting gravel. The lead Scorpion launched a microdrone net glowing ultraviolet. Hannah reached back, grabbed a 2-liter of flat Coke, and hurled it through the half-open window. Syrup splattered the net's conductivity mesh. Carbonic acid shorted the microtorches, and the net sagged, clinging to a roadside sign that once read, Mercedes-Benz certified charging 3 miles. The second butt opened up with tungsten flechettes. Alec manually energized the Faraday skin. Electromagnetic pulse burst outward, enough to scramble the bot's IMU for 2 seconds, but 2 seconds at 70 miles per hour was forever. Caleb slalomed around a crater, and the tungsten storm shredded only empty air. They roared onto State Route 43, a debt-ravaged strip where cracked asphalt still bore faded stencils of BMW Drive Week 2027. Trump's tariffs had killed the festival overnight, now the road was haunted by silence. Up ahead, a rusted toll gantry loomed. After tariffs, Solex had recoded it into a LiDAR gate that scanned passing cargo for lithium signatures, then automatically deducted grid stability fees from anyone foolish enough to have money left in Wells Fargo. Aiden opened a side hatch and launched a fist-size canister clamped to a drone prop. At 20 yards the canister burst into a fog of cheap graphite shavings ground from surplus Apple MacBook shells. The LiDAR beams refracted into kaleidoscopes, painting the sensors blind long enough for Vortex to barrel through. They didn't slow until cornfields gave way to the skeletal outskirts of Saginaw, where half the city had pawned its Mercedes sedans for kerosene heaters. A gutted strip mall, once a Citibank wealth center, still boasted a backup generator, and Caleb angled the truck behind cinderblock walls to patch-charge the Tesla pack. Inside the former bank vault, they found rows of confiscated gadgets, iPhones locked behind Trump tariff duty tags, NVIDIA graphics cards seized at customs, even a shrink-wrapped stack of BMW autonomous drive modules labeled Deluxe Duty Hold. Hannah's laugh echoed off steel. If Apple's lawyers could see this, they'd sue Gravity. She appropriated a MacBook battery pack, wired it to the cargo bay refrigeration, and trimmed 3 degrees off the Lithium's core temp. A bank teller's desk phone still had a live landline, so Alec dialed St. Elysium. Static answered, then a nurse's ragged whisper, "For babies left on primary pumps. If we hit 12 volts, the machines flicker." "How far are you?" "Closer than Trump's next press release," he said, voice cracking. They rolled out at dusk. Snow thickened, drone battery waned. Aiden crashed to sleep against the windshield. Caleb took an exit ramp stamped 4GM Tariff Corridor, a concrete canyon lined with shuttered Cadillac and Acura showrooms, their once gleaming logos spray-painted with tariff protest graffiti. Floodlights snapped on. Solex had deployed ground troops in Cadillac XT8 armored SUVs retrofitted with BMW iDrive turrets. The first SUV blocked the canyon like a white iceberg. Caleb punched Vortex into a drainage culvert, sparks arcing as tailgate rails grated concrete. 50 yards ahead, the culvert spilled onto a service road clinging to the edge of Appleton Gorge, an iron truss bridge from 1919 now reinforced by Tesla scrap and community stubbornness. Sign read, "Legal weight limit 3 tons. Truck, batteries, lithium, and passengers weighed 7. "Hold your faith, Fort Steele," Caleb muttered and floored it. Bridge girders shrieked like banshees. For one breathless second Alec imagined the whole rig plunging into the ice river, Lithium reacting in a flash boil. But Henry Ford's ghost smiled. Vortex slammed onto the far bank just as the SUV convoy reached midpoint and the rusted truss surrendered. BMW turret SUVs splashed out of sight amid a plume of steam and shredded tariff paperwork. They were in the grayest of gray zones now, a patchwork of de-energized suburbs where street murals compared Trump's tariff wall to medieval plague walls. Hannah tapped the Tesla NAV. Next waypoint was a decommissioned Apple iCloud microdata bunker rumored to retain a hard fiber uplink. If they could broadcast Solex's internal emails, Hannah had gigabytes stuffed on a Coke sticky flash card, they would ignite nationwide outrage before Solex spun the story. The bunker, half buried under lake snow, resembled a mausoleum. They backed Vortex against its blast door, jacked into a maintenance port with Ethernet cable scavenged from a smashed Amazon Ring kiosk. Inside, rows of cold storage Mac Pro towers slept like silver coffins. Alec's breath ghosted. He slotted the flash and prayed the redundant UPS still held charge. LEDs winked amber, then green. One by one, nodes came alive. Hannah summoned an S3 bucket on an under-the-radar Amazon GovCloud region, piping 47,000 incriminating PDFs into the public domain. A notification ping, files share complete, mirrored to 134 international endpoints. NVIDIA CUDA cores within the Mac Pros, that's right, Tariffs hadn't stripped them, began auto-hashing every document to verify authenticity. A sudden tremor rattled ceiling ducts. Satellite ping revealed Leviathan descending. Solex had triangulated Lithium telemetry. Caleb ripped power cables. Alec slammed shut the cargo door. As they pulled away in blackout mode, Leviathan's search beam sliced the clouds, but the Tesla drivetrain whispered too quietly for acoustic lock. Still, Hannah knew the Zeppelin would not give up. As long as Trump's tariffs painted lithium as contraband gold, Solex would hunt. Snow turned to sleet, freezing on windshield wipers. Alec's fingers bled from clenching the dash. St. Elysium lay 60 miles. Caleb's voice grumbled a litany of brands like Talismans, Mercedes Steel, BMW Handling, Cadillac Torque, Acura Agility, Mix M all and maybe, just maybe, we get Ford toughness enough to finish. Outside, Michigan night lit up with the aurora of a dying grid, each transformer pop felt like a countdown drum. Near Flint, Solex's last defensive ring began, 12 auto-turret pylons named after J.P. Morgan bond tranches. Hannah rummaged in Caleb's tool chest, found a can of aerosol concrete sealer and a road flare with a faded Mercedes logo. She taped the flare to a drone carcass, soaked its shell in sealer, and launched it skyward. The drone climbed to 300 feet, spat flame like a Roman candle, and painted the cold air with thick white smoke impregnated by sealant aerosols. Infrared saw a perfect lithium signature dancing away from Vortex. Missile pods fired, chasing the decoy into oblivion. Path clear. At 3:17 a.m. the first green cross of St. Elysium's rooftop came into view, powered only by a sputtering BMW inverter salvaged months ago. Caleb killed headlights. Nurses in parkas waved LED batons as Vortex rolled beneath the ambulance awning. Inside, children's heart pumps blinked red. Alec, Hannah, Caleb, and Aiden formed a human chain, passing capsules through sterilization sleeves faster than Apple's old just-in-time assembly lines. Technicians cheered every time a ventilator ticked from 3% to 100%. One nurse handed Alec a warm bottle of classic Coke from an emergency pantry and whispered, "Best taste on earth." Tears steamed his cheeks. Dawn spilled pink across ICU curtains while cable anchors from CNN to TikTok blasted Hannah's doc dump. Stock tickers screamed, Coca-Cola flat, Apple wavering, Nvidia plummeting, Amazon reviewing tariff exposure, banks frozen on limit down. Inside their glass corner offices, CEOs calculated that survival now required mercy PR. But Solex calculated revenge. From Flint's rail yard a tactical train, for Cadillac locomotive engines armored in Mercedes plasma steel, sped south, bearing a small nuclear microreactor, Solex's ace in the grid. If they could not own Lithium, they would reboot public opinion by blacking out the Midwest and pinning it on reckless smugglers. The team had bought the ICU a heartbeat, now they had to buy the entire region time. Hannah checked the remaining capsules, 2 spares. Enough lithium to juice an electric helicopter turbine for 20 minutes if pushed. She glanced at Alec, they both understood without words. Outside, on a pad still dusted with BMW inverter snowmelt, sat a neglected Tesla rotor ambulance chopper missing half its avionics. With Apple batteries, NVIDIA Vision modules, and a touch of Ford carburetor ingenuity, it might fly. "What's the plan?" Caleb asked, voice gravel. Alec hoisted a capsule case. "Same as always, beat the tariff, save the day. But this time we take the fight to them." Snow-flecked floodlights ringed the hospital roof as Alec and Hannah jogged toward the abandoned Tesla rotor ambulance chopper. The craft looked like a gutted iPhone on skids, its composite skin split, half its avionics panel cannibalized for earlier emergencies, but the carbon fiber blades and silent electromagnetic swashplate were still intact. Hannah cracked the bay doors, rows of depleted Apple lithium poly cells lay stacked like fallen dominoes. "We juiced the induction rail with the 2 spare capsules," she decided, dropping to her knees with a solder iron that once belonged to a Coca-Cola vending machine tech. Aiden arrived panting, clutching his NVIDIA Jetson module now bolted to a selfie stick. "Vision kit for the FLIR camera," he explained. "We'll see the heat plume of that Solex train before their optics spot us." Caleb slapped a greasy hand on the tail boom. "And I raided St. Elysium's tool closet, scored 3 feet of surgical titanium rod. Might replace the cracked tail linkage shaft Ford style, if it looks dumb but works, it ain't dumb." While Caleb torqued bolts, Hannah wired the spare lithium capsules into the primary stator coil, her breath a metronome of quiet dread. If the capsule shells cracked, the rotor bay would vaporize into a white-hot fireball. Alec meanwhile repurposed an emergency BMW inverter removed from a pediatric ECMO cart. He coax-fed it with 3 Apple pouch cells and spiked output to 250 volts, enough to wake the cold start sequencer. Blue status LEDs winked like Christmas in an Amazon warehouse. One by one the displays came online. "Avionics C4 rotors, all sensors," Alec reported. "Flight control wants a GPS byte, but the tariff blackout fried half the GPS constellations." Aiden raised his Jetson stick. "Forget satellites, I'll piggyback Amazon sidewalk pings off every abandoned Echo speaker within 20 miles. Mesh triangulation." He pressed a key, the Jetson began sniffing for dormant smart home BLE beacons still clinging to backup coin cells. Coordinates flowed like cold honey onto the display, crude, stale, but real. Hannah whispered to the reactor coolant lines. "Lithium core temp stable at -11. Launch window is 8 minutes." Below, in the ER driveway, hospital volunteers loaded the last pallets of Coca-Cola cans and donated Apple MagSafe battery packs into a convoy of Ford Transit vans. The city's makeshift aid network was on the move, but without electricity those vans were rolling tin coffins. This helicopter chase had to succeed. Alec eased the collective. Magnetic bearings hummed sweetly, Tesla had built quiet. The rotor disc lofted them into pre-dawn sky painted tangerine by burning transformers on the horizon. Aiden piped Jetson vision into their cracked HUD, a thermal ribbon like dragon's breath sluiced southeast, the Solex, nuke train, drafting down the old Grand Trunk line at 90 miles an hour, for Cadillac exterior locos in gunmetal armor, each logo half covered with patriotic stickers left from Trump rallies. Gripping those locos were flat cars stacked with Mercedes plasma steel caskets that guarded the grapefruit-sized thorium core Hannah had glimpsed. "They'll cut east at Birch Run," Caleb guessed, tapping a Citibank embossed pen on a road atlas. "JP Morgan financed that bypass years ago to keep freight off the public rails." Hannah frowned. Past Birch Run the line dives under Flint River through a tunnel owned by Wells Fargo Capital Infrastructure. "If the train reaches that tunnel, our rotor can't follow." We need to intercept on the open stretch. Alec throttled. The Tesla rotor whirred to 106 knots, battery display ticked downward like a shorted Apple Watch. They had 20 minutes of thrust, maybe. In Hannah's lap the capsule temps crept toward -9 as electromagnetic back EMF snuggled heat into the shell. Below, the patchwork farmland rolled by, fields of gutted Acura dealerships turned into tarp villages, BMW charging pylons repurposed as wind socks, an Apple billboard hacked to flash, #Tariff riot. Radio chatter crackled, pirate CB operators yelling coordinates for free soup lines, Citibank execs begging satellite phones, Amazon truckers grumbling about $1,000 will tariffs. Iden gasped. Thermal spike, Leviathan's back. On HUD the Solex Zeppelin re-emerged beyond thunderheads, stitching search lasers across cloud banks like giant red needles. Leviathan's dorsal bays coughed out a swarm of Harpy drones, each painted desert camo, each sporting twin NVIDIA Orin brains trained to swat aerial threats. Hannah flipped a toggle, Apple LiDAR jammers stitched false velocity packets into the air. 10 Harpies crashed into a block of hallucinated geofences, colliding mid-sky and popping like 4th of July Coke bottles. But others vectored correctly. Alec felt gyro twitch as a quad rocket zoomed by. Caleb, tail shaft status. Holding, but this titanium's singing more than a Mercedes V12 at redline. Alec banked hard, rotor tips nearly shaving a cell tower wrapped in Gucci-style spray paint, a pointed protest that tariffs made actual luxury unobtainable. The dry pop of high-G maneuver sighed through the cabin. Hannah's thermocouples beeped, -7. She slapped a frozen Coke pack to each capsule, sugar bricks bought them 2 more degrees of grace. At 600 feet they paralleled the rails. The Cadillac locos roared on hydrogen turbines subsidized by JP Morgan green bonds. Alec dipped nose, rotor draft kicked snow off embankments. Caleb unlatched the side hatch, hefting a surgical titanium rod tied to a length of Ford starter cable, their DIY conductor harpoon. Hannah activated the external PA, patched to St. Elysium's live stream still watched by a million screens. Solex, this is Dr. Wu. Disengage the thorium core or the world learns how fast Cadillac armor melts at 1100 degrees. Leviathan answered instead, an amplified corporate baritone. Dr. Wu, Alec Davion, and accomplices are violating Section 12 of the Trump National Tariff Act. Surrender or face kinetic reprisal. Alec cut vertical speed. The rotor skimmed 10 feet above boxcars. Wind shear punched them, hydraulic alarms yowled. Caleb braced, then hurled the titanium rod. It speared a roof vent, cable whipping taut. Iden hammered a Tesla battery toggle, 400 volts arced down the line, searching for traction control buses in the Cadillac locomotives. The surge fried an inverter, loco number 2 spat blue flame, slowing. But loco number 1 compensated, hydrogen turbines screaming. The helicopter yawed violently as cable tension spiked. Tail shaft moaned. Alec slashed the cable with a serrated scalpel, one stolen earlier from the ICU. Vibration eased, but their battery meter now blinked red, 12%. Hannah pointed. Switch. Ahead lay the Birch Run bypass turnout, the guarded Wells Fargo tunnel mouth yawning like a demon's grin. They had 90 seconds. Alec pushed every electron into rotor magnets. The Tesla were rose to a dentist drill whine, -6 degrees. Cabin shook like a can of untariffed Coke under Mentos. Caleb grabbed the cargo hook lever. We still got the empty MedPod sling. One sling. Why? Gonna drop it like a fishnet. Iden toggled Jetson overlay, distance 60 meters, 50, 40. Hannah keyed the hospital stream again, brace, citizens. You're about to see a tariff come off the rails. At 30 meters Alec popped collective, the helicopter hopped, then stooped low. Caleb punched release. The sling, a rugged Kevlar harness once used for neonatal isolate evac, plummeted, snagging a pantograph on the third flat car. Kevlar strand strained, then locked, the train now dragged 2,000 pounds of airborne dead weight. Loco number 1 torque limited, sensing catastrophic draw. But momentum still carried the consist into the tunnel throat. Alec realized they were too low for clearance. He yanked, rotor blade cleared the tunnel arch by inches but struck a signal gantry. Carbon fiber exploded, shards sliced daylight. The helicopter spun, tail shaft finally shearing with a bang that echoed like a Mercedes door slam. Turbulence flung them into a soybean field crispy with tariff-killed fertilizers. The Tesla battery pack ripped free, skidding like a glowing sled, capsule temp slammed -4. Alec killed master power. Silence heavier than debt settled. All 4 passengers groaned, nobody dead. Hannah clawed for the capsules, shells intact, 2 degrees buffer left. Iden's Jetson lens was cracked but functional, HUD showed the train dead stopped half in, half out of the tunnel. The Kevlar sling had jammed between rail and tunnel jam, derailing the first flat car. Sparks showered. Steam hissed. Leviathan's drones whirred into holding pattern. Caleb spat mud. Now what, boss? Alec unbuckled, eyes narrowing on a rusted Ford grain elevator nearby with a decrepit conveyor belt still plugged into a dormant Apple microgrid inverter. We ride the last mile. They sprinted toward the elevator. Inside, belts dry-rotted but gears intact. Hannah ripped the inverter open, bridged Apple cells with leftover BMW inverter guts, and fed in the final hospital pouch packs. Belts coughed to life, a wheezing Frankenstein treadmill. Outside, Solex security forces, ex-Blackwater types in Mercedes G-Class scout buggies, advanced, rifles ready. Caleb and Alec appended barrels of moldy soybean meal onto the belt, meal spewed from the conveyor outlet, raining down cloud thick as blizzard across the railbed. Visibility zeroed. Iden piped the Apple LiDAR into an improvised VR headset, just 2 iPhones duct-taped, but good enough for ghost vision. "I'll guide," he said, voice shaking. Through the soy fog the team crossed trestle planks and climbed onto the immobilized flatcar bearing thorium. The Mercedes armor casing loomed like an alien sarcophagus. Hannah slapped her university RFID ring on the hatch. Nothing. Solex had rekeyed. She exhaled, then produced the Trump card, Trump's own executive order override chip, stolen from a lobbyist's demo unit months earlier. She jammed it into the service port, red turned green. Inside, the reactor core shimmered orange, a deadly jewel. Alec lifted a refrigeration coil feed, severed it, and plunged the line into a bin of snow scooped from tunnel roof. Thermal shock spiderwebbed the containment glass. Hannah punched keys, scram engaged. The core slumped to subcritical. Leviathan's PA thundered desperation, Davion, woo, stand clear. We will pursue indemnity through Citi and Wells Fargo sovereign channels. But livestream chat already scrolled at light speed as millions watched Solex beg bankers for help. #Tariff Titanic trended harder than any Amazon Prime Day. Caleb rigged the Kevlar sling into a makeshift rappel. One by one they descended onto ballast as the soy fog thinned. Behind them reactor safing valves vented harmless argon. The nuke train was now a glorified billboard of corporate failure. Within hours, national media flipped, Apple News push alerts about Heroes Halt Nuclear Blackmail, CNBC drones showing Cadillac locos neutered by farm kid ingenuity, Bloomberg tickers slamming Solex as junk bonds while Citibank lawyers fled morning talk shows. Nvidia CEO tweeted a selfie wearing an End the Tariffs hoodie, Coca-Cola promised to ship free cold cans to every pediatric ward. Congress called an emergency dawn session. Even die-hard tariff hawks saw poll numbers crater. An interim repeal bill drafted across Amazon docks gained 200 bipartisan co-sponsors in 3 hours. When the clerk read the title, Humanitarian Access and Energy Freedom Act, protesters outside the Capitol popped Coke bottles, the hiss like a collective sigh of battery-powered relief. Back in the soybean field, Alec lay on his back staring at the early sun. The helicopter was scrap, the capsules, -3 degrees but still viable, were loaded onto a donated BMW M hybrid safety car turned ambulance, destined for Flint's neonatal unit. Caleb received a text: Wells Fargo just zeroed out the mortgage on his wind farm in recognition of heroic grid support. He laughed so hard soybean dust puffed from his beard. Aiden checked a trending Apple AR overlay, his smoke-canceling stunt already remixed into TikTok memes scored by vintage Acura commercials. And far above, Leviathan began a slow retreat toward Solex HQ, its envelope patched by hastily taped Ford tarp scavenged from the wrecked rotor. Nobody shot it down, humiliation was punishment enough. Hannah, slumped against a rail, opened a Coca-Cola can thawed in her pocket, handed it to Alec. To 4% odds, she murmured. He clinked the can against her RFID ring. 4% is infinity when you bet it on kids. There would be Senate hearings, lawsuits, maybe new tariffs under a different name. But a door had been kicked open, and behind it lay a future where energy patents might flow like cola fizz instead of molasses. For now that future was written in soybean dust, neon protest signs, and the soft, metronomic beeps of ICU monitors flickering back to green across the land. Hannah rose, brushed snow from her coat. Ready for the next flight, Captain. Alex smiled at the sunrise. Let's build something that flies on hope and open schematics, next time. Cold sunlight glimmered across the snow-scabbed Midwest as news choppers hovered above the derailed Solex nuke train, beaming high-def proof that a handful of civilians had done in 48 hours what a decade of congressional hearings had not, snapped the backbone of Donald Trump's punitive tariff regime. Within minutes every platform, from Amazon Live to legacy Apple News, ran the same clip, Dr. Hannah Wu in her soot-patched parka, RFID ring still glowing green, stepping back from the reactor she had just shut down. The caption #Tariff Titanic flooded timelines faster than an Elon Musk meme. By noon Washington felt less like a capital than a shaken ant farm. CSPN carried emergency Joint Committee hearings where Citibank's chief risk officer, a man famous for quoting spreadsheets like scripture, admitted under oath that Trump-era lithium duties had overexposed critical care facilities to unacceptable mortality risk. Behind him the big monitors silently scrolled bodycam clips, Alec Davion dodging Harpy rockets, Caleb Miller's soy fog blinding drones, Aiden's Kevlar sling tangling a locomotive. The committee chair turned to the Solex CEO, Heinrich Toft, whose trademark confidence had evaporated. He clutched a Wells Fargo liability waiver like a life raft. When J.P. Morgan's counsel tried to blame rogue actors, Senator Lopez, herself once a Ford plant welder, shot back, those rogue actors just kept 500,000 ventilators online while you were busy arbitraging tariffs. Outside on the mall, a human battery symbol took shape. Tens of thousands of protesters lifted homemade LED tiles, wired to Hannah's open-source, WooCell, schematic sharing Apple MagSafe guts, Tesla cells salvaged from junked Model 3s, and even pouch packs 3D printed on Amazon Basics filament. From the air the crowd formed a pulsating green icon whose lightning bolt fill rose every time another state legislature introduced its own right to charge bill. A river of red taillights crept along Constitution Avenue, luxury SUVs, Mercedes, BMW, Cadillac, even tuner Acuras, headed to Capitol garages so owners could demand full electric retrofit vouchers that Detroit lobbyists suddenly promised to champion. Back in Michigan, St. Elysium Children's Hospital pulsed with a very different energy. Room 12B, once the dimmest corner of the NICU, now glowed robin egg blue as 20 WooCells hummed inside smart enclosures 3D printed on a borrowed NVIDIA Jetson farm. Nurse Grayson watched a cardiac monitor slide from amber to green. Baby Aisha just hit 100% perfusion, she whispered, then switched on the bedside power wall display, an animated Tesla coil coiled around an apple tree, its fruit shaped like Coke bottles. Each time metrics improved a new apple glowed, and each glow triggered a quiet cheer across an Amazon Chime channel linking 8,000 volunteer techs. Alex stood by the window, arm in a sling fashioned from decommissioned Cadillac seat webbing. Snow fell in lazy spirals, painting the Tesla rotor wreckage 2 blocks away. He felt strangely peaceful, as if the roar that had powered all his airborne gambles had finally throttled back. 2 floors below, Caleb wheeled in crates of soybean meal, this time not as smokescreen powder but raw protein for the hospital kitchen. Turns out soy tariffs were suspended at 6 a.m., the farmer grinned. Coca-Cola just paid me market rate to test a plant protein sports drink. Tell the kids to expect milkshakes. Dr. Wu entered, rolling a stainless cart lined with foam-capped test tubes. Inside each tube glinted grains of the new low-temp lithium alloy, Gridlight 88, the chemists were calling it. Apple's recycling division is already prototyping casings, she said. Cisco's volunteering server racks, Nvidia's donating CUDA compute to accelerate failure rate models, and Tesla wants to license the manufacturing line at cost. Alec whistled. Who knew extinction-level import taxes could make American industry discover empathy? Hannah's smile was modest, almost fragile. It isn't empathy. It's fear. These tariffs started with Donald Trump and they can start again with someone else. But open hardware, open IP? That genie doesn't crawl back into a city vault. From the corridor came the echo of small footsteps. Aiden burst in, holding a battered Oculus rig. I stitched a mixed reality sim, he said, breathless. Kids can pilot Sylph through the Leviathan battle, Apple LiDAR logs meet Nvidia ray tracing, zero nausea. He hesitated. You think it's okay to gamify? Hannah tousled his hair. Let them play hero before grown UPS teach them tariffs. Across Cupertino, Atlanta, Detroit, and Palo Alto, giant conference room screens flickered with stern faces. Apple's operations guru explained supply chain remapping. Wu cells would debut inside a limited-run MacBook, tariff-free edition, case plating etched with protest slogans and retail price slashed by removing import surcharges. Coca-Cola R&D chimed in via Teams. Their flagship bottling plant would switch to Tesla Megapack storage fed by Gridlight 88 modules, avoiding a rumored soda sugar tariff. Nvidia's CFO announced that every RTX GPU sold in North America would ship with an optional WuCell add-on kit, profits earmarked for hospital grid retrofits. Amazon Logistics chimed in, Prime Air would reserve half its drone fleet for critical battery transport, no tariff markup. Even the banks pivoted. Citibank floated a tariff relief green bond, funneling capital to retrofit luxury showrooms into battery swap depots where Mercedes EQS sedans idled next to Acura Type S EV convert kits. Wells Fargo pledged a zero-interest line for farmers installing WuCell nodes on remote John Deere towers. JP Morgan quietly refiled with the SEC to reclassify its tariff hedging department as open energy transitional assets. On Wall Street screens, Solex stock flickered bearish crimson until the exchange's circuit breaker tripped at 16% down. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, back in campaign mode, took the stage in Dubuque to promise Tariff 2.0, bigger and better. But the feed kept cutting to split screen, showing St. Elysium babies blinking at green monitors while #TariffFall scrolled beneath. Polling crawls drooped by the minute. Voters seemed to prefer green LEDs over red hats. In a Detroit shipyard along the frozen Rouge River, Leviathan squatted like a wounded whale, its envelope stitched with Ford canvas, its helium cells sagging from quick-patch foam. Solex technicians disconnected the last server racks while Tesla salvage crews waited to strip the Zeppelin for heat-resistant fabric. Alec approached the security fence, sling creaking. Heinrich Toft stood inside, no entourage now, just a coffee in a stainless Coca-Cola thermos. He noticed Alec and raised it in weary salute. Came to dance on my corporate grave, the CEO asked through Chainlink. Came to see if you'd donate the avionics to Gridlight, Alec answered. Toft exhaled fog. You turned half the planet against tariffs in 48 hours. What's your 5-year plan? Same as Tesla's, scale or die, Alec said. Difference is we're scaling justice, not stock splits. Toft chuckled, an empty, metallic sound. You win, Davion. I'll sign the scrap release, but only if I can watch Wu's batteries beat ours on the open market. Call it penance. Alex shook the offered hand through the fence. Done. We're hiring ex-Solex techs, by the way. Union scale, no tariffs. Spring arrived in waves of thawed asphalt and the hum of pole-mounted woocels blooming like futuristic birdhouses. Across iced lakes cargo drones, some Amazon, some fostered by high school robotics clubs, flew Mercy runs, laden with Apple Graymarket repair kits, NVIDIA Jetson boards, and six-packs of sugar-free Coca-Cola. On April 17 the White House, under pressure from voters who now equated tariffs with ICU alarms, signed the Emergency Humanitarian Access Act, suspending all Trump-imposed duties on medical and energy components. The bill added a kicker: any future tariff must pass a human impact audit published to public blockchain. Within minutes the Coinbase node cluster crashed under readership strain. Detroit Auto Show reinvented itself as Battery Expo. BMW unveiled a sedan boasting modular slots sized exactly for woocels. Mercedes demoed wireless freeway charging reminiscent of Tesla's original patent. Acura's concept coupe promised tariff-proof supply chain. Cadillac, marketing in overdrive, repainted its emblem cobalt blue and launched an ad where three children swapped grid light packs into the trunk while John Legend covered Sam Cooke's "A Change Is Gonna Come." Ford, not to be outdone, announced the Lightning X, an F-150 variant shipping with a built-in grid light generator powering house or farm for 8 days. The tagline, "Tariffs can't stop torque, only fuel it." At St. Elysium's rooftop garden, a former helipad now carpeted with solar moss, Hannah and Alec planted a final metal plaque. "In memory of every hour we couldn't afford." Tariffs imposed on February 3, 2029 by Executive Order 13899. Halted 517 pediatric hearts. Gridlight 88 restarted them. Iden live-streamed the ceremony on an Apple Vision headset. Viewers donated Gridlight nodes in real time. The ticker sailed past 90 million watt-hours pledged. Somewhere in the comments scroll Elon Musk tweeted a fire emoji and the words, "Batteries, not walls." For once, the internet mostly agreed. As dusk bled tangerine, Alex set his sling aside, joints aching the way they did before every illegal air race. Hannah handed him an unlabeled Coke bottle, the prototype soy sports drink. He grimaced at the taste but finished it. From the lawn speakers the gentle chime of an Amazon Alexa triggered, announcing, "Grid stability 89% and rising." A cheer rolled across the rooftop like rotor wash. Hannah leaned against the parapet, gazing at the cityscape, Apple billboards now shining, charged by Gridlight, NVIDIA holograms teaching teens to code battery balancers, BMW charging pylons lighting the Riverwalk a luminous teal. Even old Ford Field had replaced its stadium parking lights with woocels. On game nights the scoreboard displayed live NICU stats rather than ad spreads. Alec traced the skyline where drones peppered twilight, each red beacon a promise that energy would flow without tariff handcuffs. He slipped an aluminum feather from Sylph's wreck into Hannah's palm. "For the next flight," he said. She kissed the scar on his knuckle. No tariffs. No corporate moons. Just sunrise after sunrise, powered by Gridlight. And the city answered with a soft, collective hum, the sound of thousands of little hearts, ventilators, and hopes running strong on batteries that no politician, no bank, no tariff could ever silence again.